what if I want to be ambitious and career driven, but without losing my sanity along the way? Because if success costs you your peace, it's not success, it's a trade. And so, what's the cost of that trade?
Hey friends, and welcome back to the Show Up season of the Mary Moran Show, a season about how we never asked you to be perfect. We just asked you to show up. And today I have the huge honor of sitting down for a second time now with one of my all-time favorite people, Jess Ekstrom, to talk all about how external validation and proving people wrong will never be the jet fuel that we think it is, the jet fuel that will sustain us for the long haul. As we dig into her brand new book, Making It Without Losing It, How to Stay Motivated in a World Where We Are Never Done. Let me just say, if you are someone who feels like you are never done and every achievement you reach just opens your eyes to 10 more you aren't even close to yet, then this is the episode for you. Jess, welcome back to the show.
Mary, I'm so glad to be here. And I feel like you and I have had conversations around this for
Mhm.
years. And
Yeah.
I got to say, our conversations were inspiration for this book. So I just
Yay, I love that.
appreciate your transparency and your friendship all the time.
You know what's funny is I had to go and look it up to verify that this is only the second time because I feel like we've had like
I
100
know.
conversations. I
I
was
think
like, can
we've
that
done a
be
good
right?
job at keeping in
Yeah.
touch, which
Yeah.
and having kind of off the record conversations,
Yeah.
which I really
Yeah.
appreciate. I think you and I are always like talking about the book publishing world. Okay, what's
Yes.
working for you? What isn't? Even just down to numbers and money. And it's so nice to have someone that you can do that with because that's just the only way sometimes you know like how things work is if you don't just look under the hood and share what everyone else is doing. So
Yeah.
I've always really
100%.
appreciated that.
And that's exactly what I think this episode is going to be, that
Yeah.
everybody listening kind of gets to just listen in and look under the hood as we
Look
just
under the
pull
hood. I
back
got
the
nothing to
curtain on it
hide.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so you say in the book, I am a walking experiment of hyper productivity, ultra competitiveness, people pleasing tendencies, and an unending need for validation. And the hyperproductivity did not surprise me, but the other 3 kinda did. And so I
Really?
especially I do not think of you as a competitive person at all, like, maybe with yourself, so maybe that's what you were talking about, but you are, like, the most, like, girl's girl woman that I know. And so just maybe talk about that as even the starting point.
The fact that you say that makes me so happy because that has been a constant effort. And it's
Okay.
been a pretty deep effort. In fact, the person who I think introduced us, Natalie Frank, who is so amazing and big on belonging and community over competition, was kind of the first person I admitted it to where I'm like, I am really terrible at this. To the
Okay.
point where I talk about this in the book, where there was a period in a season of my life where I had not had to, I chose to unfollow people who
Mm.
I really liked and that were my friends, but I was seeing their success and it just made me feel terrible. And it was such a me problem, not a them problem. But then it did, it sucked because unfollowed people that, like, why am I not on that stage? Why are they started after me, but they seem ahead, more ahead than I am. And then I didn't know that some people had something that tells you when someone unfollows you. And I was like, I didn't know that.
Oh,
And so
no.
someone who I was pretty close with reached out to me and was like, why'd you unfollow me?
Yeah.
And I took a second where I was like, I could lie and say, I didn't mean to. And it's just an agency that I have or whatever. I was like, or I could just be totally honest and say, look, I'm just going through a season of comparison and a spiral of comparing my little squares to your little squares. And
Mm.
that's what I ended up saying. And, she understood, but it's been an effort to celebrate people. And now I genuinely feel that way. But I think I had to get confident in me
Mm.
in order to not feel threatened by other people winning.
Yeah, gosh, I love that. I have a friend, Liz, who says you have about 30 seconds. When you see that post that makes you wanna, like, spiral into a comparison before the bomb goes off, you have 30
Yes.
seconds to cheer, to diffuse it, or it's just like a complete give in to the explosion
Oh,
kind of
that's such
moment.
a good tip. Yeah. And I just think now I have actual evidence of there being room for everyone. So, my company, Mic Drop Workshop, I basically created something that creates my own competitors. We help
Right.
women become speakers and even authors. And I'm so glad that you're also going to be involved in that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes people are like, well, why are you sharing how the tea is made or how whatever the saying is? And I'm like, well, I want my daughter and I want to grow up in a world where I'm seeing a bunch of women on stages saying things. And so I'm really just, I don't think of it as creating my own competition. I think of it creating kind of the world I want to live in. I want to see women on stages. And now that we've had thousands of women go through this, I'm like, oh, there really is a stage for everyone. There's a moment for everyone. There's a timeline for everyone. We are doing a boot camp right now, and there's a woman in there that's 88 years old who
I
is
love
in our group.
that.
And I'm like, that's incredible. And so I'm just like, yeah, everyone's on their own time. Everyone's on their own path. Social media makes us feel like we should all be somewhere that we're not.
Yeah, love that. This episode will actually come out in time for anybody who's listening. What Jess just alluded there to is that she is hosting is this the first one or is
It's
this
the first one. It
first
is the
one ever
first.
Mic Drop
Yeah.
conference in Indianapolis on May 13th to the
13th and
14th.
14th. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and I will be there.
You will be
So if
there
you
as
are
one of our
listening in
writing
time,
book publishing coaches, and I'm so
yes.
excited. Yeah, it's
Shoot us an email. We'll get you all the details to get you signed
yeah.
up. Come to
Yeah, let's do
Indianapolis.
it.
Okay, cool. So let's keep going because I got like a million questions for you. So you talk about how achievements are like Parmesan cheese, which made me laugh out loud. You will never have enough on your plate to feel fulfilled, to feel filled
Yeah.
up. And you go on to write something. So that made me laugh and this one made me cry. You feel like you're waiting to be validated by your achievements so you can start being yourself. And I was like,
Yes.
ouch.
I
That one
know.
really hurts. And I just wanted to kind of riff for a while. Like, I have my interpretation of what that means. I would love to hear it from you, what you were thinking of. Is this like you have to be accomplished enough that you get the permission to be quirky and
Mhm.
goofy? Or like, what were you
Yeah.
thinking when you wrote that sentence?
Yeah, it makes me emotional reading that sentence because now I am someone who is pretty confident. Of course, we all have our moments, but I think I started 2 multi-million dollar companies before I was 30.
Hmm.
And I still would wake up in like a panic, wondering if I was doing enough. And so I finally started to realize that there is not a single achievement that I'm going to cross that is going to cure my ambition for wanting to do more. There's just not going to be something that is like, oh, it's the like final puzzle piece. It's the like the tipping point of my confidence. And so I felt like I was waiting for something that said like a byline on my profile that was like, "Oh, now that I have this, I can finally be me. I can be me uncensored, unplugged. I can be quirky, like you were saying, and I will still be taken seriously or admired or loved and thought after." And what I wasn't realizing was like, oh, uh, if I just keep hiding who I am, waiting for a moment to validate me, the people who need to hear what I have to say won't be able to find
Right.
me. And so
Yeah.
it's the ironic because when I started being myself is when success started to happen for me. And instead of the other way around, like waiting for something to make me successful that I could finally be myself. And I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of like waiting for the evidence or waiting for the proof or the endorsement from someone to finally feel like themselves. And I've also like I've gotten those things and I'm like,
Right.
they don't do like life goes on. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
my toddler still needs me to wipe her butt. Like I still have to use dry shampoo. Like there's just not this like blissful thing that comes after it.
Yeah, I love that. There's a scene in Dirt where I talk about I feel like my achievements are the butler introducing me into every room like Dwight Schrute on The Office,
I
"Mr.
remember
James
that.
Halpert." And that it wasn't because I needed people to be impressed, it's because I wanted them to feel like I wasn't wasting their time. That, like, I
Mhm.
checked enough boxes that I was, like, worthy of even
Yeah.
s sucking up the same oxygen as they
Yes.
were. And so, I mean, man, like I said, that line really punched me to the gut, and I just had to kinda, like, sit there and sit back in my chair and think about that for a second of like, "Oof, am I doing that? Am I, like, waiting to be somebody before I can be me?" Really.
In the book, I talk about like my relationship to alcohol a little bit because I felt like there was a season where having a drink at the end of the day was a marker for me to be myself,
Wow.
even when I
Yeah.
didn't need the alcohol. And I wasn't binge drinking. I wasn't, doing anything crazy, but I was like, why do I need to pour a glass of wine for my shoulders to drop? Like, why do I need, to, you know, crack open a white claw or something for me to be silly with my husband? And so like,
Mhm.
why did I need this physical marker of alcohol? And I have nothing against alcohol. I still drink. I wouldn't consider myself that, but it is a much different relationship to it once I realized that I was using it as like a finish line, or really a starting line to be myself.
Mm.
And one of the things that I talk about in Mic Drop, because everyone's like, sometimes it's so easy to try to personify someone. Well, I just want to be Mel Robbins. I want to be Brene Brown. I want to be this person. And yeah, it's great to draw inspiration from people, but then it's like, well, those people already exist. People already have one of them. And so if we're over here kind of hiding what makes us us, then like I said before, like the right people won't be able to find you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just it it's tough. And then you got to figure out, well, who am I? Like what is the version of success that I want?
Yeah, that's actually the perfect segue into my next, batch of questions here, which is this idea of you say like one of the core target readers for this book it's not just making it without like losing your mind, it's making it
Mhm.
without losing yourself in the
Yes.
process. And you talked about, like you mentioned, two businesses, multi-million dollar before 30, but nothing ever felt good enough. You say the more I achieved, the further away I felt from myself. And
Mhm.
I just want you to kind of paint a picture of that. Was it like kind of what we were just talking about? You felt like you had to be this pretend version of yourself, or you were just too exhausted to remember yourself? Like,
Yeah.
what is it about getting everything we ever wanted that makes us feel like we left who we always were behind in the process?
So this is where it gets interesting because one of the things I've realized, and then I think you're the same way, Mary, is that I like being ambitious. I
Same.
like creating things. I like building stuff. I like writing books. I like starting new things. I like trying things and editing and figuring it out. But the trap I was falling into was the things that I haven't done yet. I was always felt like I was in a deficit. It's like, well, if I want to write this book or start a podcast or do this thing and I haven't done it yet, then that means I'm inherently less or I'm behind. And that's what achievement and ambition can feel like, is the measure of the gap between where you're at now and where
Yeah.
you want to go.
Right.
And of course, you can interpret that gap as to what you haven't done. But then I've started to interpret the gap as the game that I love playing. Like, I just love having things that are in front of me. And it's not a marker of me being, I'm not there yet. I'm not where I want to be. It's like, I wonder what it would take to sell 10,000 copies of Making It Without Losing It. How interesting is that? Like, how fun could that be? And I also get that not everything's going to be fun and things are going to suck. But I'm like, I just knowing that sometimes when you're just an ambitious and a high achieving person, even just the reframe of like, I haven't done that yet versus just like, this is the game I like to play. And I'm not going to be sorry for that is a huge turning point. So now the things that I haven't done yet are exciting and not these like looming mountains that are all my friends are standing on. I'm like,
Hmm.
this is fun for me.
Wow, the gap is this the game I like to play might have just
Yeah.
changed my life.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
But you and
We'll
I
just
are the
hang out there
same
for a
way
second.
too. You know, it's like sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, why can't I just, chill out? And it's like, no, I like playing this game. This
Yeah.
is fun for me. And that was, one of I think we write the books that we once needed and also the ones
Yes,
that we couldn't
or right
find.
now.
Yes. Making Out Without Losing It for me was the book I couldn't find because there are so many books around hustle that are kind of not talking to like ourself as a human and our livelihood and our peace. And then there are books around presence and mindfulness and stuff that's great. But what if I want both? What if I want to be ambitious and career driven, but without losing my sanity along the way? Because if success costs you your peace, it's not success, it's a trade. And so, what's the cost of that trade?
Yeah, that's good. You give us an example in the book of the ultimate losing yourself by trying to chase accomplishments, accolades, external validation gone awry. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't go more off the tracks than this. And it involves a relative of yours that for the first time ever you tell us in this book, you actually spent some time interviewing in while in prison. And
Yep.
so why don't you just tell us that
Should we go
story?
there?
Let's just go there.
I love that you're someone I can just talk to like about this because it is something that makes like my armpits start sweating and I get like really clammy and I'm like, it's
Yeah.
Mary. I love talking about this with you. So, yeah, I had something really crazy happen when I was in high school and learned that not only did my family lose like all of their money and all their savings, I learned that because my mom's uncle is Bernie Madoff.
Mm.
And for anyone might be unfamiliar, he's the biggest financial fraud in history, like point blank, stealing over $64 billion in his Ponzi scheme.
Wow.
It was like, yeah, just this moment where I think I was young enough to be, I was old enough to know this is bad.
You were a senior in high
Young,
school. Is that
yeah, I
about
was a
right?
senior in high school. Yeah,
Yeah.
young enough to be maybe a little bit more curious than shameful while my parents and everyone are like picking up the pieces. And then I realized that when he was sentenced to 150 years in prison, that it was going to be, and rightfully so, he was sentenced to Butner, North Carolina, which was around 45 minutes from where I lived.
Okay.
And Mary, I have talked about this in therapy. I am trying to figure out what it was that made me want to go visit him.
Mm.
It I think a part of me wanted to see if I could find the closure that my family didn't get,
Yeah.
like something around, well, this is why he did it. And it's not that bad. And, I don't know. I was just trying to look for something. I wanted to be the hero in some sense. And maybe if I could just talk to him.
Mhm.
And so I wrote him a letter and was like, can I come visit you? And he said, yep, I'm not getting many visitors these days. Like I have to find humor in this or else I'll cry. But
Yeah.
uh, so I went and visited him in prison. And I remember like one of the first questions that I asked him was like, just why would you do this? Not necessarily how, because I didn't care and I didn't understand the how.
Yeah.
But why? This was like his kids lost everything, like not just people he didn't know, but people he loved lost
Yeah.
everything. And the answer that he told me, Mary, is like just I think you can have both things can be true. I could be compassionate towards him and also he's a villain,
Mm.
And this answer, he said, this crime didn't start when I was made my first bad investment. This crime started when I was a kid in Brooklyn and none of the kids would play with me. And so I would offer them nickels
Hmm.
to play with me.
Yeah.
And that was when I learned that admiration can be bought.
Wow.
Like if I can just buy people's attention,
Yeah.
then I can do that.
Wow. Oof.
What
Wow.
a gut punch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And unknowingly, like I think at the time I didn't realize it, but it kind of shifted the way that I wanted to think about my life because I saw the most extreme case of being driven by external things and being driven by how something looks versus how it is and how it feels. And so it wasn't super clear to me then, but it did plant the seed of like, I don't want to live a life for other people and pay people nickels. Like, I want to do something that's real and do something that's good.
Gosh,
And
that's good.
yeah,
That's so
it's
good.
been
I mean, but truly, this is obviously a very extreme example, but like it is to me, it is such a like dashboard blinking light of like these wounds that were Mary that you're avoiding, like these
are we
wounds
all?
that you don't want to deal with. Like these wounds can be your undoing if left
Yeah.
unchecked. If you just continue to try to feed that beast, there is no end because it does become just like one up after one up after one up until
Yeah,
our account always says move the decimal point, so
exactly. For a while, this story, for a long time, maybe 12 years, was like this scarlet letter that I really wanted to make sure that no one ever found out about. Didn't want to be associated with him. I just remember even being in class and like learning about him and group discussion. Okay, who think, and I'm like, I just was sweating, hoping no one would find out.
yeah,
Um,
right.
and then I was years later, my sister's like a wilderness explorer. She like leads people on backpacking trips. And so we always, do something like that. And we were in Sequoia National Park. And so many of the sequoia trees, like the bottom halves were burned. And I was like, oh my gosh, Heather, it was my sister. I was like, this is so sad. Like so many of these trees are burned. And she goes, oh no, that's like a part of their growth process. Like
Hmm.
natural forest fires, like burn out like invasive species, like toxicity, and it creates room for new growth. And that's how sequoias survive, is because of the fires. And I just had this moment where I was like, oh, that's what this was. When I look at the shift that my family made during that time, I mean, my parents eventually, after getting their feet back under them, became park rangers. My grandparents, lost their whole retirement and started like their own airport shuttle service, which of course was hard for them, but my grandma always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so it was
Mm.
like, well, then she got to do that in her, 80s. And my sister, started doing these like crazy like ultra marathons. And then I started doing this. I'm like, oh, that was just a forest fire that like paved way for this different kind of growth that maybe would never had. I would never say I'm like grateful or thankful, but I would say like, oh, that changed us.
You mentioned a second ago about this external motivation that had driven him that we both say like,
Yeah.
we can fall into. And that brings me to this next part I really want to make sure we talk about, which is broadly self-determination theory, but specifically intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And you argue as even one of the core pillars, two pillars of this book, that motivation is an inside job, not an outside job if we want it to
Yeah.
last. And so I just want you to talk a little bit about, let's kind of compare and contrast external versus
Yep.
internal, extrinsic versus intrinsic. You say that external validation feels uncontrollable, fleeting, uninspired. You can riff on any of those three if you want, or you can also talk about what they can look like. So I'm just going to read the list and then you can maybe give us some examples. External looks like finite goals, finish lines, conditional joy, forced willpower, checking boxes, extrinsic validation, right? Like we're getting our
Hmm.
approval from others. So I'll pause there because that's a long list. Kind of like talk about some of the scripts that might sound like those things.
Yeah. So one good way to figure out I'll give you a couple tips because countless studies show that intrinsic motivation will always outlast and outwork extrinsic motivation. And so of course you're like, okay, well then I'll just be intrinsically motivated. And it's of course not that easy. So we have to do a constant like rewiring because we live in a world that basically we walk around with numbers above our head that's like how well or not well am I belonging here? And
Right.
so it is so hard to get out of that mindset of like performing for other people and being extrinsically motivated. So if extrinsic motivation is checking the boxes, then that means intrinsic motivation is connecting the dots. So if you feel
Mm,
like you're just like boom, trying to get to the bottom of a list in this anxious way versus doing things that you know are connected to something bigger. I call like extrinsic is like I must do and intrinsic is I want to do. So intrinsic is powered by like interest or impact. And the cool part about intrinsic motivation is that it doesn't need an announcement. It doesn't need like you know, some declaration. It has the greatest horsepower in secret because it's personal to us. Like we know that it matters. So a test that everyone can do, we can do it on this podcast to see is like what am I chasing? Is it am I externally or internally driven? Imagine whatever it is that you're chasing right now, like whatever goal, whatever, thing that's just kind of been on your mind at the top of your list, like, oh, I could just get this. Get like a specific thing. And then imagine that you got it. It's yours. You got the email, you got the notification, you can, you got someone told you it's yours, you got it. But the kicker is that no one can know it's you.
oh,
No one
oh.
can know. No one can know, Mary. It has to be anonymous. You can't tell Justin. You can't share it anywhere. Yeah, you can't put on LinkedIn. I'm pleased to announce that. And then
Oh.
ask yourself, would you still do it?
Mm.
And if
I
your
wrote in
answer
my
is
notes.
yes, yeah,
I
tell me.
I just wrote in my notes, "Oof, that hurts." I have that later in my notes, and I just wrote, "Oof, that one
It's
hurts."
so it's so telling. And I run this I call it the purpose test and making it without losing it. And I do it all the time because I'm like, am I chasing this because of how it looks or how it feels? And
Yeah.
there are so many things that I know that I am just doing because I want to post about it or say whatever. Um and then there are some things that I would do in the dark. Like I love
Yes,
it so much
that's right.
and yeah, I would do it time and time again. Well, let me ask you, what your purpose test, what did that do for you?
I think this is maybe a sign of growth a little bit because it also told me the stuff that I would do even if I was gonna get hurt about it,
Okay.
for it. So there's this part in Underestimated where I talk about feeling like when I was little, I always wanted to be Cheer Bear from the Care Bears because she was pink and bubbly and happy and everybody's favorite. But I always sort of knew I was destined to be plain old brown Tenderheart Bear because he was the leader and his job was looking plain on the outside so he could like Care Bear stare, shine a spotlight on others.
Gosh, that's so
And
cute.
he wore his heart on the outside where he stood the very real chance of getting hurt. And so, what we're really talking about here is like, what would you go after, even if nobody ever thanked you, even if nobody ever gave you a gold star, even
Yes.
if nobody ever gave you credit or like wanted to know you because you had made it, arrived somewhere,
Yeah.
but you would we always talk in the show about there's a reason that passion means suffering. Like, what would you suffer to birth into this world because you know it's going to really change people's lives? And I think that that's brand new vocabulary for Mary. As somebody who's been like A plus gold star, let's accomplish all the things. I think I just spoke at a conference where I'm stepping on stage and you know that leaders wear a target on their back, and so it's like but you know that like what you're going to talk about is going to actually like send shockwaves through somebody's life and hit a raw nerve that they're not going to stop thinking about for a long time. So, ooh, like, will you have a few people who are going to side eye you the rest of the conference? Maybe, but like, are
Yeah.
you going to have a lot more people who are like, I was shaking in my seat because I needed to hear that?
Yeah,
Then it's worth it.
exactly.
Yeah.
It reminds me, Mary, People always say, well, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And I'm like, that is the dumbest question. Like, the question should be, what would you still do if you
Right.
knew failure was inevitable? Like, if you knew that you were going to mess up, that you were going to fail, what is worth doing anyway? Because that's the real question that we should all be asking ourselves is like, what is worth the price tag of failure? Like, I, speaking for me and helping people speak, I'm not perfect. I've messed up before, but that's worth it to me. And I would do it again. But then there are some things that I'm like, yeah, I don't want it bad enough because this failure, this mistake feels like the end for me when I know that if I really wanted it, it would have just been like a pivot.
That's
So
right.
it's like, what would you still do if you knew you were going to fail?
Yep.
And that's what we should be asking.
Yeah, and that's perfect for even just bouncing right into the next section of questions. It's like we've almost planned it, but we have not. And that is kind of this idea of the process, right? Like that when you say you're going to fail, like of course we're all going to fail. We're going to fail a bunch of times. And if you fail long enough, eventually, most likely you'll succeed if you stick with it long enough. And so you had the two pillars in the book. And one of them was about, the motivation is going to be that inside job. And the other was you find success in the present, not in the future, that it's in the process. And you have chapter 1 is called The Smash is Always Better Than the Cash. And I would just love for you to start off by telling us that story.
I swear, if people were looking at this book just with the titles, they'd be like, what was this girl on when she wrote this? And
Oh.
the smash is better than the cash is this story that I had when I was a kid. And I think everyone remembers having a piggy bank. And I was obsessed with like putting money in my piggy bank. I was clearly a lemonade stand girly. And when, there's that final moment when you try to put a coin in and it's like, oh, it's not going in, it's full. And I remember my mom telling me, well, you have to smash it and all of your coins can come out and then you get to go use them. I like smashed that. I swear I had like flames in my eyes, like Ric Flair. I was so excited to just smash it. And then of course you do all the points and it was like a whopping like $9.70. But my mom took me to the dollar store, like Dollar Tree, to pick out some things, which in hindsight, super smart by her because I could buy like multiple things versus if we went to Target, it would be like, what, pack of gum do you want?
Mhm.
And so I bought, my some things and toys. And as I was like driving back, I was like, that looking at my bag of things that I just got, I'm like, this is not as exciting
Yeah.
as building and smashing the piggy bank. And I realized what I really wanted was another piggy bank, not this
Mhm.
like Hello Kitty brush and Barbie or whatever it might be. And so there's a really interesting study around this with
Mm.
dopamine at Vanderbilt, where we thought for a long time we got that hit of dopamine, which is like the feel good chemical at the results when we actually get it in anticipation of the results in the process. I hate being the girl that's like, it's not about the destination, it's the journey. But there is truth to that. And
Yeah.
that was when I learned it at a young age.
Yeah, it reminds me of Gretchen Rubin in The Happiness Project when she talks about planning the trip is often much more happiness inducing than actually being on the trip. And
Yes.
I
And then we
hate
have
that
such
so
high
much.
expectations for
Yeah.
it and things like
Yeah.
that. But I do think, Mary, like once we realize that we don't need to put so much weight in singular outcomes like the trip, or you've seen so many weddings up close. I think
Yeah.
weddings have a big
Yes.
crash afterwards.
Yes.
And there's actually, again, science behind that called the post achievement letdown when there's so much on one singular moment. And Olympians have talked about it, like Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, about how they experienced depression after the Olympics. But when we put so much weight on a singular moment, it's never going to live up to what we had in our head. Like, I love my mom, but at Thanksgiving, it is like, I think she has so much weight as to what it is going to be when we're all under the same roof. And I get it. But I'm like, Mom, it's never going to be what a week ago was in your head that you thought Thanksgiving was going to be. And so let's just be a little bit more loose in our expectations for it. And so I do think that there's a way that we can train ourselves to like enjoy the outcome a bit more than we have.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. A second ago, I was saying like, "Oh, I hate that so much." It's like you want the vacation to be as good as
Yeah.
you imagine it to be. You know, you've
Mhm.
picked these restaurants, you've imagined yourself in this spot on the beach. Here's a perfect example. We went to Banff, and I spent forever picking out like I'm going to wear red because photographers know that red next to the cyan of the water is going to pop really well, and you know, like
Yeah.
there was so much thought.
There
And
was
just, you
thought.
know,
Yeah.
we're going to be Justin and I are going to be standing on this coast by this teal blue lake that, you know, will be just us. And we got there, Jess, and I was elbow to elbow with every Instagram girl in the country. We were like taking swings to find our place on the
Move, it's
shore,
my
which is
turn.
so
Yeah.
metaphorical. You know, my friend
Yeah.
Kim Butler talks about standing in your place on the shore. I'm like, I can't. There's an Instagram girl in that
Yeah, there's
place.
someone right there that's trying to have their moment when I'm trying to have mine. There was some like
Exactly.
real like in like Santorini, it was like Instagram versus reality of like the line of people waiting to have their moment.
Woof.
What did you would you say? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think this is interesting like with weddings.
Mhm.
What are some of the moments that you think like the bride and groom actually like the most, that cherish the most?
That they cherish the most. Okay, I thought you were gonna ask, like, they think it's gonna be one thing and it's another.
And you can say that too. But I mean, f- for my wedding, it was like this unexpected kind of moment where Jake and I, after we tied the knot, we like went and hid behind somewhere and like ate some tacos together, just him and
Nice.
I.
Yeah.
And that's the moment that I like cherish most about my wedding. And I think it was because it wasn't exactly like planned. It was unexpected. It wasn't for show. And there was no photographer there, you know. And so I wonder what you've seen.
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones we see is people don't wanna do a first look where they see each other before the ceremony, and we can get a lot of the photos done, so that they can actually be at the cocktail hour and enjoy their party is because they're holding on to that moment of, like, his face when
Mm,
she's walking down the aisle and he sees her for the first time, because 'cause it's been immortalized in every
yeah.
movie ever made, and a couple things happen in that moment. One is that, when you first walk in, you know, everybody else can kinda see you, but he's all the way in the front, so it's hard for him to see you at first.
Right.
All these people are watching you have this moment, so it can be kind of awkward or what have you. You get, like, blurry tunnel vision where it's sort of like out of body kind of experience. Time is fast forward and slow motion at the same time, and so, in my experience, the brides who are afraid he like, if he cries in the first look, he's gonna cry again at the ceremony. Or if he's, like, super, you know, emotional or whatever, he's gonna do it at both. And I've seen so many of them forego the first look, waiting for that moment, and then the moment is not
And then the
what they
moment
thought
isn't,
it
oh
should
my
be.
gosh, that
Yeah.
just got me all clammy.
Yeah.
I have seen that happen before where they have this expectation of like how they want them to react. And I've done that
Yeah.
before, not at a wedding, but like I had accomplished something. Like I got, you know, the Inc. 500 female founder list. And I was like,
Yeah.
Jake, you know, my husband, I'm like, oh my God, I got the Inc. 500 female founder list. And he's like, oh, cool. Like, what is that? And I was like, that's not the moment that I wanted. Like, I wanted you to
Right.
be like, you are the most talented
Right.
person I've ever. And it's like, we're all reading from this manual that no one else has. And so we're expecting everyone to match our moments. Well, I wanted it to be this way. Well, how is he not, or this person not reading like what I wanted this experience to be? And so I think so much of this practice of, you know, making it without losing it and being able to enjoy the outcomes is loosening our grip on them and
Yeah.
wondering like what could be. I mean, right now, you know this better than anyone, Mary. You know, with the book launch coming up, there are so many singular outcomes that you're trying to
Yeah.
hit, whether that's
Yeah.
copies sold, list, podcast, this or
Podcasts.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
TV.
exactly.
Yeah.
TV. Oh, is it going to get Good Morning America? Is it going to get this? And I am really it's such a good test for me to like put my money where my mouth is and be like, I'm putting it out there and whatever will be. And we'll just like see where this goes. I'm not anti goal. I'm anti the goal being the only thing.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you were one of the first people who ever said to me, like, go on the show, Mary. Love it, enjoy it, but it's not gonna, like, change your life. Like, get
It's
the
not gonna
blue
change
check
your
mark,
life.
but it's not gonna
Yeah.
change your life, you know?
Yeah.
And I know that to be true because, we would always say to, like, entrepreneurs, for example, like, "You keeping that pace, you're gonna burn out, you're gonna burn out, you're gonna burn out," and they'd be like, "Okay, grandma, you just don't know,
Yeah.
like,
I
how
would
fast
hate
I
when
can
people would tell
go."
me that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we would do the same thing, "Okay, grandpa, don't tell us what
Yeah.
we can't do." And it's, when you hit burnout, it's not like coasting off to the side of the road, running out of gas gradually. It's hitting a brick wall at 90 miles an hour, very sudden stop, with a drop of the transmission falling out. And I think it's similar to that. I talk about that in slow growth of like, we start off from a place of at last exhausted because to a certain extent, you just have to go try. You have to go
Yes.
try to achieve all these accolades and accomplishments and more and more and more, and the next thing and the next thing, and finally reach a point where you're like sick on the marshmallows of, okay, I guess there's not a single amount of marshmallows I can eat that will ever make me feel full. Parmesan that will ever make me feel full.
So true.
And it's hard for people to believe it, until
Yeah.
you're in that place, until you've crossed it off the list and you don't feel the way that you thought you would feel.
Yeah, and just realizing no achievement's gonna cure your ambition. Not a single one. And so you just have to figure out how to love the game. I mean, I look at like, the Winter Olympics were this year, Lindsey Vonn like coming back and
Yeah.
competing, and it's like she didn't have anything else to prove or to do. She's medaled, she's one of the best, and even though it wasn't the outcome that she wanted, it was like she just loved the game. She's just curious about her own ability. And so I think a lot of that too is just about like ownership of your own path. It's like, I want to decide when I'm done. I want to decide what success is to me. Like, that's great.
I want to go back to something you were referencing earlier, this Olympic post-win depression,
Hmm.
and like what happens to high achievers when they try to find their meaning or their happiness or their fulfillment in the result. Organizational psychologist Adam Grant, you share, explains one reason why so many high achievers are unhappy. Their expectations rise faster than their accomplishments. Success is most satisfying when you have high aspirations but modest expectations. You can set ambitious goals without taking it for granted that you'll attain them, or I added, you'll attain them as quickly as you think you should. And then you talk about this idea of it's not the reward itself that fuels us, it's the chase. When the chase ends, like for the Olympic athletes, the brain loses its excitement juice. The research shows that dopamine is more tied to wanting than liking, which means
Hmm.
the anticipation of a reward is more pleasurable than receiving it. So like this idea of like you have to fall in love with the process because when we get the thing we want, like our brains are actually wired to not reward that the way we think it should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes with finding problems you like to solve.
Yeah.
Because I thought that, well, in order for me to feel successful, then that's going to be a period in my life where then I don't have problems. And so I felt like I was just trying to like play a game of whack-a-mole. Like I just had to whack these problems away so I could finally be happy. And then I realized, oh, I'm always going to have problems. Like when I was, my first company had Bands of Hope. I think one of the reasons when I knew it was time for me to move on and exit was when I wasn't excited about the problems that we were having, supply
Yeah.
chain trends, things like that. But mic drop, women's pay, delivering information, like growing and scaling community, those problems were ones I was excited to solve.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
so I think that a lot of this like homeostasis and success is not around eliminating problems. It's about finding ones that you like because no matter where you go, what changes you make, they're going to be there. I've never met anyone that's like accomplished something or made a certain amount of money. And don't get me wrong, money helps, but that is, oh, well, now I have nothing to worry about.
That's right.
That it's always good. Brain's going to find something. So find problems
Yeah.
you're excited to solve.
Yeah, I love that. My friend Laylee Amati, who just spoke at the conference that I did and
Love
is going to be
Lily.
on this show. Oh, good. I was going to say you two
Yeah.
need to know each other if you don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's
Okay,
great.
good. So, in her talk on burnout, she said one of the early signs that like burnout is taking over is that you get an inquiry and you're like, oh, You like for us for
Such a
that conference it
telltale
would be like
sign.
for wedding clients, but like you get an inquiry to speak or you get an inquiry for coaching or to be on a podcast or whatever it is, and it's like, oh, instead of like, yes, let's
Like,
go.
listen to that gut reaction. That's such a
Yeah.
good tip.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be jumping into all of that with her on an episode shortly after yours releases. So
Oh, good.
that'll
Y'all
be
be in
super
for a
fun.
treat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, building off that idea of like the dopamine, our brains are wired to reward the anticipation more than the receiving, the wanting more than the actual liking, the actual, getting it. And so, that wanting mind of ours can get us in trouble, though, as all things linked to dopamine, it can really go off the edge, in the other extreme. And you talk about the wanting mind being the one always asking what's next. We had an entire coast to coast bus tour with our faces on the side called the What's Next tour. So I super get that and paid attention to that. And I guess like maybe talk about when the love of the process, the love of the game, the like wanting what you're working towards gives way to things like as we circle back to the beginning, comparison, looking at people's progress. You say, look at other people's progress when you're seeing it as the absence of your own versus inspiration tells us to look at it as evidence of what's possible. So
Yeah.
maybe just talk about like we can use the wanting part of our brain to keep us in the process and keep us going when it gets hard. But what happens when we run to the other extreme of what's next, what's next, what's next?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. One thing I learned, went on this retreat one time, and it was like a silent meditation retreat, which if you are listening to the show, you know that that was not an easy thing for me to do. But the instructor there, I asked him kind of the question that we're talking about now. And this guy is like just the Mr. Meditation himself, like so grounded. And this is like what he does. So I'm like, well, how can I be thinking about the future, which I want to do because that is a requirement, I think, we have to think about what's next and still be good with what I am now. How do those things live together? And he said, when you look at an acorn, you can either think of it as the perfect acorn or an inadequate oak tree. You
Wow.
can look at it for its perfection of what it is now or what it is not yet.
Hmm.
So he was like, the key is knowing you're going to be an oak tree, but you're also the perfect acorn.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, that's really good. And so I like the wanting mind, of course, we're going to want more. Like,
Hmm.
it's human nature.
Yeah.
And I think where we get in trouble though is, and this is where I get in trouble, is this conditioned mind to always be wanting and never be happy with what I am. It's like your mind almost gets addicted to solving problems and that like dopamine rush of what's next. And so it's about knowing that you have untapped potential always, but that doesn't mean that you're any less for what you are right now. You're the perfect acorn. So anytime I'm feeling that, I literally might even say to myself, "Oh, the perfect acorn."
I love that.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that. Kind of to just sort of beginning to wrap us up here, talking about this idea of where we think it's going to come from, inside us or from the world,
yeah,
intrinsic versus extrinsic. You talk about the guy who never called, and what that
yes.
story stands for. So just tell us that story and then sort of the deeper lesson for all of us listening.
Well, let's just say there was a few boys that never called, but this one, this one, was probably the most mad about. But so I was just getting kind of my sea legs and speaking, and was speaking at an event, and there was a big headline speaker of a name we've all heard of. We know his company, but for the sake of his anonymity, I'll call him Bill. And after I got done with my like little side stage talk, Bill came up to me and he was like, "Do you have a valid passport?" I was like, "Absolutely, I do, Bill." This is when the narrator says, "She did not have a valid passport." I was like, "I do not."
She did not, in
But
fact.
she did not, in fact, have a valid passport. But I was like, whatever Bill's doing, I'm in. Like, sign me up. And he was like, good, because I'm going to make you a world class speaker. Like, you're coming
Wow.
with me. I'm going to put you on tour, all this stuff. And I felt like a UFO standing above me, and I'm just like beamed up to the top. Like I was just selected. I called my mom. I was so excited. And then I waited by the phone. I waited. I waited. I refreshed my email. I even called Gmail to make sure I wasn't having any receiving issues. And it's really hard to call Gmail. And I did it. And they were like, no, it's all clear. I was like, dang it. And he never called. I never heard from him. And I felt like in that moment, I was like, well, that was my ticket. That was my chance.
Yeah.
Like you're a kid in the arcade with the claw machine going towards a stuffed animal, and you see it happening, and then it just like clips the ear and
Oh,
comes up empty. That's just how it
yes.
felt. I'm like, it just literally clipped my ear and then didn't happen. And I had a choice to make where I was like, okay, am I just going to say, okay, the train left and I'm not on it?
Mm.
That was my chance. Or am I just going to stick to my original plan of consistency, teaming up with other women, referring each other, getting on stages? And that's what I did. I just was consistent. I kept getting reps. I was teaming up with other women, which eventually became what is now Mic Drop Workshop. And I saw him about like 8 years later when I was speaking at an event. And when we met again, I had this just amazing full story revelation where I was like, oh, I am now standing in the spot that I thought only he could get me.
Wow.
And I always say, like, the true connection that we're looking for, like, starts when we stop looking for a hand and start offering one. Like, I was looking for the hand to pick me above me instead of looking around me and looking within me. And there's just like no endorsement or putting all of your eggs in like someone or something else is risky, and it doesn't work. It if it works, it's temporary. And that like, Bill, I got to thank you cuz you taught me that lesson.
Yeah, that's right. There's a scene in Dirt where I talk about a dream I had, and this is not like a metaphorical artistic license, poetic license. This was an actual sit up in bed at 3 in the morning nightmare that I had once just. And in the dream, I was like trying to get to this author that I super looked up to at the time through a crowd. I was trying to get to her, trying to reach her, and I had dirt in my hands, and I just knew that if I could get to her and could get like place dirt in her hands, that she would open it up and read any paragraph and turn around and say, like, "You've got it, kid. Like, you're gonna be one of the
Yeah.
ones, tap on the forehead, tap on the shoulder, tap to like," and I would have made it.
Yeah.
And every time I got close to her, the scene would change and there would be more people between us. And it was I said I woke up exhausted basically from like
Yeah,
chasing her,
from
from chasing
chasing her.
people. And exactly what you said, never once did I think about any of the people I was like pushing past to get to her or turn around and see like the people who were maybe trying to like tap me on the shoulder to ask me a question. But it was just like who can be the like silver bullet, who can be the
Yeah,
permission slip,
exactly.
who's gonna, have the keys to the door and open the door and invite me to the table, whatever, all the metaphors. And we have now, just kind of going back what we were saying earlier, we've now had the experience where like somebody with millions of followers shared a book that I wrote, and that was incredible, and I'm so grateful. But we also know that it sold about 50 books,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
every single one of those books I'm so grateful for, but that's not the ratio we would expect,
Right.
right? For
It's not
millions
the
of
like
followers.
golden ticket. Yeah.
Right, the golden ticket, that's it. Yes,
I
exactly.
know. And if we spend so much time, the amount of time that we spend looking and acquiring the golden ticket that we could have spent with just consistency and small wins,
Mm,
like I would bet on the controllable any day. I would
yeah,
rather bet on the small incremental wins that I can control versus like just throwing darts and seeing if someone out there can validate me and pick me. And to be honest, just talking publishing really quick, because I know this is your you have a lot of listeners that are interested in publishing. That's why I'm doing Making It Without Losing It through my own imprint versus a publisher this time. Is because I'm like, this idea of being selected by someone and someone deciding if this book is good enough and how many copies it should sell, and not a game I want to play anymore. And so it's also like making choices in my day and how I run my business that isn't so reliant on these golden tickets out there that are so fleeting and never what we think they're going to be.
Oh, so good. And that just brings us to like the perfect wrap up of for the person who's been listening the whole time and they are realizing they've been waiting for the tap on the shoulder, the golden ticket, the permission slip
Yes.
from somebody else. And they're now having this like, oh crap moment of like, I have
Yeah.
to be the one to motivate myself and do
It's
it
me.
consistently. Just parting words of wisdom for, what's going to rewire their brain moving forward.
I would say ask yourself, like, what is the next right thing?
Hmm.
I think I am someone who tends to get overwhelmed by thinking of like all the things I want to do and all the things I want to create. What is the next right thing that I can do right now? What's one small thing I can do today? And I think about just 1 yard gains and don't worry about winning the Super Bowl. Just like, what's the 1 yard gain you can do right now? Because that is going to be where they add up. And a lot of people give up when they throw the Hail Mary and it doesn't work. But you're going to be the one that's still going with those 1 yard gains. And so keep doing that.
Just let them know. I know they're going to want a bunch more of you after this. Let them know where they can find you, the new podcast, the conference we talked about, this book, and any bonuses you want them to know about. This will come out 1 week before launch.
Oh, you're the best. So you can get Making It Without Losing It wherever books are sold. I am a sucker for retail or a sucker for local retail. So
Yeah.
please try to find one through your local bookstore too. And then if you go to jessekstrom.com/making it, then you will get the audiobook for free. And so you can show your receipt of buying the physical book. And if you order before May 5th, you can get the audiobook for free. And then you and I are going to be in Indianapolis May 13th and 14th. So you can
Woo!
go to micdropworkshop.com/micdroplive. And this is our women speakers, authors, thought leader conference, and would love, love, love to see you all there.
Oh, love it. Perfect. All right, friends, the book is Making It Without Losing It: How to Stay Motivated in a World Where We Are Never Done. It is out next week everywhere books are sold. Get this in your hands, but go grab that pre-order bonus right now. Get those pre-orders in and get a second book, the audiobook, for free. One to take while you're walking and on the road with Jess, the next to actually underline and keep forever as a memento of the time we decided that we're going to make it without losing it. Until next time, friends, this is the Mary Moran Show, and welcome to your Show Up season.